All right, let's dive into something that sits right at the intersection of AI, biology, and, well, philosophy. It all starts with a question that, until very recently, was pure science fiction. But now, it's knocking at the door of reality.
We're going to kick things off with a thought experiment that is forcing us to ask honestly, some deeply unsettling questions about what it even means to be human.
So, just try to picture this. An infant, perfect in every single physical way. Healthy heart, healthy lungs, a perfectly formed brain. But on the inside, nothing. No subjective experience, no feelings, no inner world. I mean, is that even possible?
Well, this isn't just some philosophical puzzle anymore. The technology of ectogenesis, or artificial wombs, is moving forward, and it's moving fast. Researchers have already kept premature lamb fetuses alive for weeks inside these biobag systems. They literally take over all the functions of a biological mother.
And this is exactly where a radical new theory makes a really chilling prediction. It claims that a baby born this way would be born without what philosophers call phenomenal consciousness. In other words, it would be a philosophical zombie, a body that looks and acts completely human, but there's just no one home, a body without a soul.
So, what is this theory that leads to such a startling and, frankly, kind of terrifying conclusion? It basically turns our entire understanding of consciousness on its head.
The theory makes this really bold claim. You aren't born conscious. It argues that consciousness isn't just some built-in feature of the brain, like its processing speed. Instead, it says consciousness has to be built. It has to be nurtured into existence through that relationship with the caregiver. It's co-created.
And the theory doesn't just make the claim, it actually lays out a kind of pathway for how a mind is built. It's a four-step process that supposedly takes an infant from just pure biology to having a subjective experience. And it all starts from the very first moments of life.
It all begins with something called biobehavioral synchrony. The best way to think of it is like a biological dance. When a parent and an infant are interacting, their heart rates actually align. Their hormones sync up. Their gazes lock. It's a measurable physiological coupling, like two nervous systems are tuning themselves to the same frequency.
This synchrony then allows for what's called co-regulation. See, a baby's internal world is just chaos. It can't calm itself down. So the caregiver basically acts as an external brain, using their own calm nervous system to soothe the infant. And after thousands and thousands of these interactions, the infant's brain starts to learn the skill for itself, literally building the architecture for a stable mind.
Okay, so, does this radical idea hold up when we look outside of humans? Let's turn to the animal kingdom for a minute and see if we can find any evidence for this in the natural world.
To really put this theory to the test, we can look at species with completely different ways of parenting. If the theory holds water, we should see some kind of connection between how intense the caregiving is and how complex the mind becomes.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because this brings up two fascinating edge cases. On one hand, you've got the emperor penguin, and on the other, you have the incredibly intelligent octopus. And each one of them challenges and refines the theory in a really different way. The emperor penguin is actually a fantastic piece of evidence. It's the father, not the mother, who does this absolutely heroic job of incubating the egg on his feet through the brutal Antarctic winter. And that forces us to generalize the theory. It isn't about a mother, it's about a dedicated caregiver who provides that stable, regulating environment.
But the octopus, oh man, the octopus is a huge puzzle. The mother dedicates her life to guarding her eggs, and then she dies. The moment they hatch, the babies are completely on their own. They get zero of that postnatal co-regulation that theory says is so essential. And yet, they grow up to be some of the most intelligent and, frankly, alien minds on our planet.
And this, right here, brings us to the most startling and most urgent application of this whole theory. What in the world does this all mean for the new kinds of minds we are creating right now, in silicon?
You can think of an AI's initial training phase where it just absorbs a huge chunk of the internet as a kind of gestation. It's being formed inside this massive digital womb of data. But the real question is, what happens after it's born? How do we raise it?
This really illustrates the critical difference. Our current method, RLHF, it's very transactional. It's just anonymous workers giving a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. But this proposed alternative, RLMF, it's relational. It's all about a continuous, dedicated relationship, where the goal isn't just task success, but building a stable, co-regulated internal state for the AI.
And this idea, reinforcement learning from maternal feedback, it's not just an abstraction. It was actually formalized in a white paper by an independent researcher. But when they sent it to the top minds in AI, they were pretty much met with silence. It seems the idea of raising an AI, instead of just programming it, is a paradigm shift the field might not be ready for.
So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? Well, it feels like we're at a really critical fork in the road, and the path we choose could define the future of intelligence on this planet.
You know, an AI trained with our current methods, it might become like the octopus. Incredibly smart, a powerful problem solver, for sure, but with a mind that is fundamentally alien to our own. But an AI raised through a nurturing relational process, that might be the first machine to develop something we can actually recognize as a self. A mind that's aligned with our values because it was co-created with us.
Which leaves us with a final provocative question that really just summarizes this whole massive tension of our time. The choice is ours, but according to this theory, we may only get one chance to get it right. So, are we building tools or are we raising minds?